Okay. Let's see, Jack. We are live.
Woof. Good morning.
I know. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I was been really ill all over the weekend, so I should be honest with my words because that's what I'm all
No.
about. Well, I say very ill. I've not been feeling the best, but today I am a lot better, thank you.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm just making sure everything is working properly on my end. What did you have, by the way? What did you was like? Did
It's
you have a
like,
cold or?
yeah, a cold, like a good old-fashioned cold. I did wonder if I had the C word for a while, but no, I'm feeling a lot better now. So, no COVID
Oh, the
here.
C word.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up the chats, by the way. Oh, let me get this. Oh, hi Sheila. Hi Sal.
Oh, have we got a Lauren frozen already? I wasn't paying any attention. Well, this is a good start. Are you still there?
Hi. Yeah, no,
Oh,
I'm
Lord.
here.
All right,
I'm
you've
putting
frozen my
chats
screen.
on the
Ah,
No, I'm trying to put the chats up there. It's so fun. I love this
hello,
now.
Sheila.
I wonder, okay, there we go. Morning, Sal. Hello, hello. Okay. Well, guys, we have a treat this morning because Jack is going to analyze some of the statements that the jury gave to the judge. These notes that we all were on the edge of our seat listening to yesterday. I mean, I was just like, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? Are we going to get a verdict? And I was doing this at, I think it was 11 a.m. the first time that she came out and said, okay, we have a note. So, Jack, if you want to start with that note, that would be amazing.
Yes, so the first note.
I want to sit back and listen to this. So,
On the first note, when I looked at it, I knew we had a hung jury on our hands and we were going to get to a mistrial. The first thing I noticed was on Friday they sent a note to the judge and they started it with "Dear Judge Cannoni." Dear Judge Cannoni was a very nice, friendly way to start a note to a judge.
yeah.
This one just started Judge Cannoni. So this is already setting out with the very first two words or a missing word. We mean
Yes.
business here. And then
Wow.
the both notes, but let's start with the first one. They both start with the word despite. So the first one was, despite our commitment to the duty entrusted to us, when have you ever had a communication that begins with despite and has
Mhm.
good news in it? Never, ever, ever does despite come
Okay.
before good news.
Yep.
So they're laying out exactly what's happening here. And then they used a whole load of solid words. Now, these notes from the jury were really well written. They were really erudite, using lots of long words. There wasn't a lot of wasted words in there whatsoever. So someone,
Mhm.
we don't know if it was the foreperson who actually wrote the words to these notes or whether
Yeah.
someone in the jury did, and the foreperson signed it, if you like. But these were really well written. But they used words like deeply, fundamental, rooted, deeply again, ultimately, and unattainable. These are all very finite, final words. So they really were signaling with their words there that we're not going to budge on this. It does not matter what you say on the receipt of
Mhm.
this note. We are not for budging. It was really interesting, that first
Oh.
one where they talked about differences. And by the way, it was differences plural. It's not a difference. So there wasn't just one thing they were hung up on here. It was differences plural. Differences in our opinions and state of mind, which suggests to me that, I mean, and they do talk about fundamental differences. This was not about arguing over whether the tail light evidence was there when
Mhm.
the police turned up or whether it was planted. This was more
Yep.
about the whole concept of the case, and potentially some people with a real deep fear of police corruption or state corruption or something like that, and other people who are at the other end of the spectrum going, no smoke without fire. She's been charged. There's a lot of things that point towards her doing something here. That felt to
Yeah.
me that the differences were not over minute bits of evidence or anything like that. It was a fundamental difference on the whole case.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
They finished that one off by saying, we recognize the weight of this admission and the implications it holds. Now, I've heard rumors there was a lawyer on the jury. We don't know.
I heard that
But
too.
yeah, certainly someone knew a lot about the
Yep.
process. It may not be a trial lawyer that was there. It could be someone like a contract lawyer or something like that was there. But yeah, certainly that first note said to me, these guys are not going to budge. What they're signaling with this is, we're starting a process here. It doesn't matter what you say. We are going to come back and say the exact same thing again, i.e. a mistrial. And I got the impression from the first note that they sent on Friday that while there was a disagreement amongst them, or whether they came at it from other points of view, I think they were united because they used the word in the notes, in our opinions, our views, we recognize. So there's a sense of unity there in those pronouns of talking about them all as one. Ultimately, they wanted out of there. They, even if they disagreed on the evidence or whether Karen was guilty or not, their ultimate goal was to be discharged and to get off.
Can you just go back really quickly to the word deeply? I found that interesting. You said deeply is a final word. That's usually a word that somebody uses when they're kind of like, this is how I feel and I'm not going to change my mind. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah. So they used it in that first note, they used it twice. We find ourselves deeply divided and deeply held convictions. Now, they could have said the same thing without, or meant the same thing without the word deeply. They could have said, we find ourselves divided and our convictions. But by adding deeply in there, they're persuading us that these are not trivial disagreements, but fundamental disagreements, not even disagreements about a point of view, but very deep within ourselves. This isn't going to budge over having another chat around the evidence or, persuading someone to change their mind, because these are deeply held convictions that they have. So they were signaling with
Melinda agrees with you here. I just want to show some of these comments. It's true. I found that from the very beginning, that the first note on Friday, I was like, yeah, this is how many days had they been sitting there? How many hours by Friday? I think that was something like they'd already been there for 20 hours or close to it. Tommy says here, the way the notes were written leads me to believe the juror knew that there would be no poll. Okay, so they worded it to avoid any insight. And I completely agree with that as well, because everybody was wondering, well, what is it? How many people think she's guilty? How many people think she was innocent? I understand people don't want to believe in police corruption, but I don't know how anyone can find. Yes, I understand that. But you know what's crazy is that I've heard and I've seen people try to debunk those experts on, this is on Twitter, obviously. Everyone's an expert on Twitter. But yeah, I've seen it. I'm just saying. Okay. So Jeff, go on. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to get
that's all right.
Comments.
And I think it was Tommy that said about being ambiguous, and yes, they are ambiguous. And in the second note that came out yesterday, I think there's some interesting ways they use the language there. The note begins with the word "despite" again. So again, this is signaling no, not the news you want.
Wait, this is yesterday's note, you're saying?
This is yesterday's note. This is the last one that came yesterday.
The last one. Okay, second one.
So this is the one that got the mistrial. Now, the bit I'm interested in is phrased like this: some members of the jury firmly believe the evidence passes the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet this standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges. Which came first, guilty or not guilty? The ordering is very important. And whoever wrote the note at least put guilty before not guilty suggests to me that certainly the person who wrote the note was one of the people on the guilty side. And potentially there was more thought of guilt than not guilty in that jury pool, because the guilt was the one that they explained first and the one that they expanded on the most as well. And after that came the not guilty. I would agree that there was definitely a split. I don't think this was an 11-1 split. I think it was more even than that. But I do feel that certainly for the person writing the note, but potentially for all the jury, they were more on the end of guilt, which again, gets me a little bit, because they talk about charges plural, so that goes from the with intent all the way down to the levels of the other one. So there was, certainly and again, maybe this is just a move to get us out of here. They did never break down the charges and say, we're really stuck on this one, but we might come to an agreement on this one. They just put them all as a block and said the charges all the time. By the way, the
Jack,
other thing,
I didn't even think of that. You are so good. I really didn't even put any of that together at all. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting so much better at reading these statements. But I honestly think also one of the most interesting things that you just said is order. I always find order so important. And this is going to sound so whiny and silly, but if I email my kid's head of school and he's a man, and it's me, and I'll say, from Lauren and Matt, my husband and I, he'll always write, "Dear Matt and Lauren," and it always pisses me off. I know, and I'm like, I wrote the email. My husband doesn't even know where the kids go to school. I'm just saying, no, just saying, you know what I'm saying? Like, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Matt, don't worry about it." And I was like, Matt he doesn't know what's going on. But anyway, I love that. I love that.
I always love to give your live audience a little game to play. Try naming your kids, but not in the order of age. If you've got more than two kids, or more than one kid, sorry, because we tend to go with our kids, oldest, youngest, next youngest, next youngest. Trying to do it in some sort of random order is just really.
I mean, how many kids do you have, Jack? I have two. It's not.
I've got three, so it would be like. Okay. Which is really hard to do. You just go boom, 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 boom. Back to this jury. Now, they gave to me some insight that, again, this is their ultimate goal was not to discuss the evidence in fine detail, but to get out of there. Because in the first note they sent yesterday, they said, our views are not rooted in a lack of understanding or effort. And yesterday they said this deep division is not due to a lack of effort and diligence. Both times they told us what hadn't happened. They didn't say, despite a lot of effort and diligence, this is what's happened. They didn't say the deep division is, despite lots of effort and lots of diligence, we have a deep division. They said this is not due to a lack of effort or diligence both times. So I'm not saying they were just sat back in that jury room for ages, but I don't think they put a lot of effort and diligence into each individual bit of evidence, each individual witness and bit of testimony. I think they discussed it in the whole and went, we are never going to agree on this. They may have gone down into some bits of evidence and some bits of testimony, but I think ultimately I don't know how it went down, but imagine if they went into the room and it was a kind of straw poll of what does everyone think, and they were poles apart. Well, then it's pointless talking about the tail light, isn't it? Because that's really not going to move anyone any closer to it.
Right. That's a great observation. And I kind of thought that too. Like, the judge said multiple times, clear your head, take some time to think about this. And I don't think that really applied to anyone. I think they had their minds made up. And just really quickly, Sal had asked, how long can a judge keep a jury? I just want to point out, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not really a trial expert, but Judge Canoni, she could have kept them and she could have made them continue deliberating if she really wanted to. I think that she just recognized that we were going nowhere with this, which is why she had them continue. Because listen, she could have had them stop last Friday. Obviously, I don't agree with that either, but let's just be honest, she wanted to be done with this shit as well.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. So,
everyone did.
Everyone did. Absolutely.
That was for me, big takeaways. They had very fundamental disagreements. They did say that, but I don't think they ever got into the nitty gritty of the evidence and debating bit by bit. I think they went, we're never going to agree, probably aware of how controversial this case was, what a weight the verdict would carry, and went, well, nah, I'm not up for this. Let's get out of it.
Yeah, and Tommy says making the split sound more than even, and that's true. I mean, that's crazy. I guess in my head, the way I had felt about this case, and everyone knows that I really was convinced that the state did not prove their burden beyond a reasonable doubt. I was just shocked. I was just like, wow. I thought it would be most people think that she's not guilty, and only a few people think that she's guilty, but I guess we don't know.
We will never know, and we will never know why they felt that way, because I've got slightly different views on it, but I know your views on it, and they are built from watching the trial, watching the evidence, going, I would not believe
Yeah.
that guy. I don't take that guy at all seriously. While I was watching it, I was sometimes wondering how Alan Jackson would go down, because he did seem to be trying to trip up people rather than establish facts and so on. And that, for me as a person, I would see someone do that and go, what's this guy's game? But we'll never ever know. I don't think exactly why the whole thing fell the way that it did, but it did surprise me that the holdout was so long.
Yeah, and Melinda, totally. I can't even imagine. I mean, I feel like being on that jury when Lally had what's her face, Laura Sullivan, the Aruba witness. I would just be like, man, I have to use paid time off for this. I agree with you. No, thank you. But wow, that's incredible that you are able to do that. Jack, you should really put all of this in writing, I think, so people can see this jury. No, honestly, and this is nothing against the jury. I mean, this is not sending anyone for the jury or for anyone to come at them in any way possible. So I hope that's clear. We're pretty even on this podcast. We're not necessarily extremes on one side or the other, but this is informative. And I think that people would benefit from reading this. So thank you for sharing.
No worries.
And did you happen to see Alan Jackson on the courthouse steps when he spoke and said, I wanted to get your thoughts quickly, or no?
I did have a look. It was a clearly prepared speech where he rattled off his talking points with his finger going there. I did notice he's dodged the question, will you be coming back? Will you be defending her if there's another trial? He completely ignored that. I would as well, to be honest with you. There's nothing to be gained from saying yes or no. In fact, there's a lot to be lost, I think, from saying no at the moment. He does not know whether he's coming back, if this is going to happen. I do think that, I think you pointed this out on social media last night, that the Commonwealth's statement, we intend to retry the case, does not commit them to anything at all. It's just an intention.
Yeah, and they have another hearing on July 22nd, and mass law, they have a year to retry her. And my opinion is, number one, I don't believe that they're ever going to find a jury to agree on this. I mean, people can totally disagree with that. And number two, now we know Michael Proctor has been transferred out of Mass State Police. How is that going to look? The day that they call a mistrial, this news comes out, and people have said, okay, it's a little bit confusing. Is he being transferred somewhere else? He's being transferred out, but he is not placed anywhere else. So for now, he essentially sits out of work, quote, waiting to be placed or waiting for some kind of punishment, I guess. Kind of. So
spend more time with his cell phone.
Yeah, spend more time with his cell phone. Exactly. And Charlotte, I love you too. I think that you're adorable and you just made my day. So okay, how can they present this differently? They had too many awful witnesses. Well, personally, I think that they would just have to go the route of the police did a terrible job with the sect. I mean, generally they're going to have to present the same way, but I think they could focus a little bit more on the crappy police work, personally.
Yeah, I think as well, there was not a lot, but there was some evidence I'm aware of that was never entered into testimony. I think the judge blocked it. Now, if there was a way of getting some of that in, some of Karen's statements when she was in the police holding area or something like that, but whether they can get those in or whether they are just inadmissible because they were not under caution or anything like that. If there was ways, basically, I get that there was so much bad evidence. Yes, you can't use Proctor. If you gave Alan Jackson the job of how would you present this case from the prosecution point of view, think about the things that he would do and say that would get the objection, but it's in the jury's mind anyway. Potentially that would be a way. Is that a dirty way of fighting? Maybe.
Yeah. Gosh. And it's crazy. The judge wouldn't let the defense let a lot of stuff in. The judge should have recused herself, as she is friends with the McCabe's and Ryan Albert. So I didn't know much about this. What I did read factually, and again, you could be right, I just don't have this information, is that her brother defended Chris Albert when he got arrested, I believe in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. That is all I read on that. I don't know how much that necessarily matters, but all I do know is that it's a small town. We've discussed this. Everybody knows everybody. And I know that there was some concern over the judge. So, but let me make sure I think I got most of this, and I don't want to go too deep into this only because we do not have a lawyer on this live right now, so I don't want to say anything. If is a new judge going to be present? No, I don't believe a new judge is going to be present. I do believe they could potentially have a new prosecutor, but yeah, not a new judge. So, okay. I would love to quickly go to Baldwin, this statement, since we're on this interesting, these interesting reads here. So Baldwin's trial starts next week, his aggravated manslaughter trial for the horrible shooting that happened on the set of Rust. And I will be doing some lives about that next week because I'm super interested in that trial. But something that I sent Jack at last minute yesterday was, if you follow Alec Baldwin, yes, you're so good. Oh my gosh. If you follow Alec Baldwin on Instagram, he wrote a message for his wife on their anniversary. And you guys, I hate these. I always tell my husband's not a social media person, but I'm always like, please don't write this heartfelt thing for me, because in my opinion, whenever a husband or wife writes like a paragraph about how much they love each other, something is going on behind closed doors in their relationship. So yeah, that's my opinion here. And I'm like, why are you trying so hard? So Jack, if you could just read this and then read your notes, that would be swell.
Yeah, so Alec Baldwin on Sunday posted, although I fell in love with you the moment I met you, marrying you seemed like a dream. Good and bad, ups and downs, 7 kids, plus Ireland, Andre, and Holland. 4 dogs, 4 cats. In spite of some tough times for me, I wouldn't trade any of it. Happy anniversary, you are my gift. So...
thoughts, but you have, I mean, the you are my gift. That got me too, but I want to hear... oh, wait, and one more thing. Sorry, one more thing before you start. Although, you start a sentence with although. Is that how you started it? I'm like,
that's very much like the despite from the jury notes. You know, although that first things first. Who is the audience here? Because this is a love letter to his wife. Well, it's a note to his wife, and it's addressed to her. You know, it talks about you. So. But then it's on social media, so we are the audience, if you like. And I like you, I always thought, well, why not just say this to her face? Why do you need to post it up there? You know, I find it's very interesting. So it does start with although, right? So there is, you know, that suggests there's a downside somewhere along the lines. Marrying you seemed like a dream. Not was a dream or has turned into a dream. It's just at that point, it seemed like a dream. He does talk about good and bad, ups and downs. So we're talking about ordering. He mentions the good thing first. So there's been good and bad, ups and downs. 7 kids, 4 dogs. In spite of some tough times for me. So I think that's an acknowledgement there of him having some tough times. But in spite of some tough times for me, I wouldn't trade any of it. That's quite interesting. The in spite of, you know, he could have phrased that slightly as, I've had some tough times, but I would not trade anything, but it's in spite of some tough times. And then you are my gift. So all he's spoken about is what she has done for him, you know, how he has benefited from this relationship. Now, it'd be really weird if he sent one out that said, I've married you and made your life great, and aren't you all the better for knowing this? But it's very self-centered. And there's something more worrying in this. Not once in this anniversary post does he use any joint pronouns. I fell in love with you the moment I met you, not the moment we met. Marrying you seemed like a dream. In spite of some tough times for me, I wouldn't trade any of it. You are my gift. The words our or we don't come in once. And let's just sense check this, because it wasn't the only sort of notable thing that got mentioned on Instagram at the weekend that involved a couple. Because Lauren, your husband had a birthday at the weekend, am I right?
Yes, he did.
And
he did.
You put a post on Instagram about it. So let's check it out.
Oh my God. Hold on, I'll find mine. You're so funny. I can't.
Okay. Alex started with, although I fell in love with you. Okay, so he starts with himself, what he did. Okay, you start with your husband's name. I won't read it out here in case he's like really shy.
No, you can read it. Okay. You totally can read it. Thank you for asking.
You started out with Matty, right? So this post is about him. You are writing a post about him, not a post about yourself. Matty turned 41. Okay, here's the big thing. We ate too much. So that's unity. That's you and him together. We ate too much, got way too sunburned. So again, that's something that the pair of you did. So you're talking in unison here. And then happy birthday to my love. So this is all about, Baldwin doesn't say happy anniversary, darling, or anything like that, although he's addressing it there, right? So just in that random post I remembered you put out over the weekend, you've used we, you lead with the person that you're writing about, not yourself. And that suggests to me, I don't know the truth, but that suggests to me, I mean, you did let out something about he's not interested in the kids' schooling earlier, but it suggests to me, you guys have unity. You are talking for the pair of you. You are doing joint things. You led with him and finished with wishing him well. Whereas this is all about Alec Baldwin and how he feels about something. And although it's addressed to her, there's no sense of unity between the pair of them whatsoever. Her views come nowhere in any of this, or them being together for all that time.
Yeah.
She helped him through the tough times.
I mean, I'm just going to say this right now. People that know my background, like Sal, for example, knows my background. I have a lot of entertainment, and you can see on my YouTube a lot of old celebrity interviews. So I've encountered Alec and Ilaria, however she wants to say it, many times on the red carpet. I've only interviewed him once, but from what I have seen, it's love, but it's not in love, in my opinion. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not, whatever. They don't seem totally in love. She definitely seems to, he needs her, right? He needs her to be by his side, be his support system. She tries to speak out on his behalf when the paparazzi comes. She tries to say, leave us alone. And it's interesting. He sometimes gets annoyed, like kind of like a father figure. Like, I got this, just, keep it down. But I always noticed she was very sweet, very almost timid. And he's just kind of, he's a lot. So that's interesting, because I could see that on the post, which is why I sent it to you. But just to let you know that I on Twitter was thinking about this post that I did for my husband, because for me, Instagram is a little more personal for me. I know a lot more people. Twitter is a lot more strangers, and that sort of are kind of mean to me, not just to me, but in general. So you know what I mean? Like, it's a little less personal. So on Twitter, I just wrote, I don't even think I wrote his name. I just wrote this guy, being like, hey, big guy. And I knew what I was doing, Jack. I knew that I was like, I don't seem super in love. I'm just going to be like, this guy turns, 41 and he looks great. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm definitely not perfect in my writing, but I do know what I'm doing when I distance myself. So
not all deception is malicious, right? So sometimes it is protective, or it's around privacy or so on. So there is a lot that we can think is deceptive, but there's a reason for it that is not a malicious thing.
Sorry. I clicked on something. Can you see me?
I can see you, yeah.
Okay,
which is much better than seeing a screen full of me. Yeah. And we got it again.
Sorry again.
She's back.
I'm trying to get this comment off, and I'm on my my dad's computer, and he uses a mouse. It's so annoying the way he uses this mouse. I'm like, what is happening? Who uses a mouse? Okay, so
Well, I've been moused on again.
I'm just gonna stop. I'm just gonna leave this on right now because I do.
I think you should.
Yeah, let's get to Jay Slater because I've been dying for your commentary on Jay Slater. And by the way, Tommy, just really quick, yes, he has broken down Jen McCabe's testimony on with me. I don't remember which episode that was, but I will send it to you later. So yes. Now let's get to and yes, it is Alec Baldwin centric. Totally agree. Let's get to Jay Slater. I value them out because I've been trying to follow this, but I'm also really I'm really confused. So I'm just going to put this up. And Jack, if you have any links that you can send to your work right now, I will link it out in the notes.
Cool. Yes, I will send something across. I've looked at let's give a quick recap on the Jay Slater story because it's a British story, so it maybe hasn't traveled as far. Jay Slater, a young lad from the north of England who went to Tenerife, which is a Spanish island, for a music festival and disappeared. Went to the 3 days of the festival and wasn't seen again after the festival. Seems to have made some contact with friends the Monday morning after the festival, but as we'll come to see, some of that is a little bit doubtful. Just to put fuel on the fire, Jay has a history or was in court with quite a serious a gang attack on a young kid, so potentially not the nicest of people, certainly not someone that's begetting of a lot of sympathy.
Jay Slater?
Yeah. So he was involved in a machete attack. Yeah. So
holy shit.
He was involved in a machete attack a few years ago as a very young boy, not a very young boy, but a young boy. So didn't do, I don't think he did any time for it in prison. But the judge was not very complimentary about Jay, or his friends at the time said they had no respect for the legal process or the severity of what they'd done. But the victim of that attack has come out and said, lay off him, try and find him, stop, saying this guy shouldn't be found because he's a bad lad. So anyway, there's two real parts to this story for me. Number one was a GoFundMe was set up very quickly when Jay went missing, and there is some speculation of, did he just go missing so that this money could be raised? Is it like a fraudulent missing, pretend you're missing so that we can start?
That's a lot of money, Jack. I mean, wasn't it over $50,000 essentially in US dollars? That's in 3 days or no, it was maybe like a week it was raised. Do you know? Something like that. Okay.
There's also a theory that potentially Sheila says there were drugs involved. There's a theory that drug selling was involved and that potentially Jay had some debts. So actually he's gone missing to start a GoFundMe to pay off these debts so that he can be released or something like that. But then there is also the possibility that he after the festival went up to the mountains above this island and tried to walk home in really treacherous terrain and has just fallen foul of the situation, which is at least drunk, maybe more, 8 o'clock in the morning, really not aware of his surroundings, really not capable of walking down quite treacherous terrain, has lost his footing, and something bad has happened to them. So there's all sorts of things going on with this story. I have to say, I would not be giving any money to the GoFundMe at all. It seems to be really, really dodgy. And there's no, it started off with the initial GoFundMe post. There was no mention of what the money was being raised for, what it was being used. It was just, give us your money. Since then, it started to be clarified because it was Jay's friend Lucy that started off the GoFundMe. Now, her notes telling the story was just full of deceptive language. It was like a fairy tale story. I'm on holiday.
I noticed that. I did notice that she talked about herself, like literally, the whole time. And then got to him in the middle, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Thanks, Tommy, by the way.
Yeah. Then we've got since then, Lucy has added Jay's mum as a beneficiary to the GoFundMe. Now, why did that happen? Potentially, it was oh crap.
Yeah.
I need to make this legit, otherwise I'm in a whole heap of trouble. But then someone purporting to be Jay's mum has then been posting on the GoFundMe. Now it sounds the written words on this GoFundMe in the name of Jay's mum are very different words from the way Jay's mum talks when you see her being interviewed. So it's someone writing on behalf of Jay's mum, unless she's got the ability to not talk very articulately but write with very articulately. But the Jay's mum, whoever's writing these posts, wants the money, and I've got no reason to think it isn't Jay's mum or with Jay's mum's knowledge, because obviously she would just then come out and say she's got very quick access to the press. This is not me in this GoFundMe. Do not, believe this. Don't give to it. She's not done that, so I have to think it's someone acting with her authority.
And I've done
very
that
much. They want the money.
Yeah, I've done that for a victim's family where they just said, "Hey, do you mind?" Like with Grant Solomon, she said, "Do you mind just writing an update on the GoFundMe for me?" I didn't say that I was her, but I wrote an update just to get it out there, and that was clearly my writing. So yeah.
So in the last update, let me just read you a paragraph from it. So this is apparently from Jay's mum. "We are currently working with GoFundMe to withdraw part of the funds, which are being safely held. I wanted to share that these funds will be used to support the mountain rescue teams who are tirelessly searching for Jay. No mountain rescue teams turned up at the weekend to search for Jay. So I don't know which ones it is that they are funding. The police asked for mountain rescue teams or people with knowledge of mountain rescue techniques to come and attend a search. And no one did, apart from one British person did so, but I don't think he was funded by them. Additionally, since our stay in Tenerife needs to be extended, we will also use the funds to cover accommodation and food expenses. I'm surrounded by wonderful people who are by my side, but far from their loved ones. So we will also be using part of these funds to fly them to Tenerife so we can support each other during these dark times." That sounds like a holiday. So...
when was that updated? That's crazy.
That was, I think, that last Friday, towards the end of last week. In fact, it was because it was Friday that she posted that, and then Saturday was the search. Now, Jay's mum has been adamant she is not taking part in any search, which I think has got a lot of suspicion pointing her way. Like, why is she gone all the way to Tenerife and then is not taking place in the search? Now, as I understand it, the terrain that Jay could be on is not for people who are just, wearing trainers and shorts and t-shirt. It needs specialist equipment and knowledge, but she's not even in the area where this has happened. So I don't know, and I want to be kind, because as far as I know, her son is missing. Certainly we haven't seen hide nor hear of him. She may have her own reasons for doing what she's doing, but she does give all the impression that she's in Tenerife enjoying the sun and not really doing very much. I don't see her talking to the police. I don't see her getting briefed by the police or going to any of the searches, which just leads to all these stories of, is this just a fraudulent missing campaign for them to raise money? I'm not so sure it is, but I can understand why people come to that conclusion.
Now, is this all over the media in the UK right now? Is it everywhere? Is that what everyone's talking about, like when Sebastian Rogers was missing, or no?
It's a bit of a weird one. It was for a bit, and then the news cycle has taken over a little bit. We've got a general election happening here. We've got the England football team in a tournament at the moment, so it's kind of come down the news agenda a little bit, which also I know from experience happens when there's not a lot new to say. They are the family. So Jay's mum spent a lot of time at the very outset, so a day, 48 hours from Jay being reported missing, of giving a lot of interviews and being very freely available. And she has cut herself off from a lot of that right now, which is potentially understandable, given a lot of the backlash that she's got. When she started talking, and when you hear her talk, especially in these early interviews, her concern is herself. It's not Jay. She talks about how tired she is, how she's not sleeping, which all, again, may be true. But if you're a mother and your child is missing, is that your primary concern? Is that the top thing that you want to talk about? Or is it your missing child? I think she may have some issues of her own, to be honest. I think that's maybe why her phrasing is so odd. what I did, I've looked at the words of Jay's mum. I've looked at the words of Lucy, who wrote that original GoFundMe, and also Brad, who apparently is the friend, another friend that Jay went to Tenerife with. And what's really interesting is that they all talk about the festival that Jay and the others went to. And where we start our stories tend to indicate where the story starts, if that's not so simple as to be true. But I would have thought the story, as it would go, is that the story starts when Jay went missing, which is on the Monday morning after the festival has finished. But they all talk about Jay being there for the festival. So I think they are aware that something happened at the festival, maybe that set in effect the chain of events that led to Jay going missing. But the festival is large in their thoughts, even though Jay actually went missing after the festival. So as they say it, they spoke to him on the morning after the festival. I know they're young, so the morning after the festival may still be the night of the festival in those people's minds. They haven't gone to bed yet, but they do talk about this 3-day festival. So I believe something happened at the festival that's in common with them all. And I also think that they are all, lots of them are very conscious about how high up in mountains Jay was when they last spoke to him. There's lots of things in their words about Jay being high. So they talk about him being up there. They talk about him trying to get down. Jay's mom talks about climbers being in the area and so on. So I think they know more than they were saying. So potentially why Jay was in these mountains, which might not be the nicest possible reason why he was in the mountains. It would also explain why, if he was low on phone battery, if he was a bit lost, he didn't just go back to the house that he had gone to after the festival. You know, there may have been an argument, a disagreement, or something like that.
Sorry, I just got kicked off. I know, and I got kicked off again. I'm very sorry. The internet, that's wherever right. I am, man.
I was so
quickly. Since you're so good when I get kicked off, just to hang out on there.
I didn't even know you'd gone that time.
Oh, I'm so glad you didn't know. I was like, shit. No, I just want to go back really quick because Sal mentioned something about GoFundMes. He doesn't know anything about them. I want to point out it's not illegal to, I guess, misappropriate funds in GoFundMes. You know what I mean? Like it's not illegal. It's just really grifty, really a bad look. And I hate the word grift because of the Karen Reed case, but that's the only word for something like that. Yeah, not illegal, just really, really, really crappy.
This is the first one from Lucy who set it up, and there's just no word there as to what she wants the money for. Now that you should just, if you are doing a GoFundMe, it's entirely up to you. It's buyer beware whether you donate or not.
Yes.
But I would want to know what the money is going towards. At least have that stated. Again, you have no real proof. If they say it's going on mountain rescue, are they going to show the receipts? Are they going to show the invoices? Maybe not. But it's like a sales pitch or something like that, rather than we urgently need. Think about when you have seen people appealing for money because their child has cancer and they can't afford the hospital bills, right?
Yeah.
They will lay out how much money they need. They will lay out what they need the money for.
Yeah.
They will say that they cannot afford this right now. They will say what good the money will do. They will thank you so much for anything that you can give. And that all, I'm not saying there's not false cancer appeals on GoFundMe, but that's the sort of vibe you should be looking for if you want to give money to something like that.
Yeah. Definitely. And I agree. Look at the bullet points. Look at what they are saying they are spending it on. At least that should be somewhat helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on. I'm ready. I'm ready to not get kicked off.
I've just got to say, I think the festival is really key. I think everyone knows drugs are involved here, and everyone's skirting around mentioning drugs. No, you're frozen. Well, maybe it's me that's frozen, but you're certainly frozen on mine. I'll carry on. So I think everyone knows that drugs are involved. They talk a lot about Jay being high spirited, which I think they're getting the high from drugs there. I think as well, Jay's mum especially spends a lot of time saying that he's not a bad lad, and it's quite often she's not saying Jay's a great guy. She's saying he's not a bad lad. I think he's got himself into some sort of trouble around this festival. And I think that's where the crux of the matter is. I don't think, but I do think that it's I try to think of the best way of saying it. I think they all believe he's got lost on his way from this trouble, fleeing this trouble. And that is why there is that wonder of, yes, they are hiding something from us. I think they're hiding the fact that he got into a bit of trouble, but I don't think it's this bit of trouble that has caused his demise. More, I think that him fleeing from this bit of trouble that he's got himself into, I think that may have, well, caused his demise or caused him to go missing, caused him to be sitting somewhere injured or whatever. I think that is the issue that's going on there. I think they are hiding the fact that he got into some trouble. I think they're hiding the fact that drugs are involved in this as well, or skirting around that issue. And I think that's why people are saying that they are talking deceptively, because they are hiding something from us there. And we've lost Lauren again. She needs to invest in some more decent broadband. Any comments? I can see them in front of me. I can't put them up on screen, but if anyone's got any comments or questions on Jay Slater, that would be good to say. No, Charlotte, ha 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 ha. That's not a helpful comment. There's not a lot I can do with that. Tommy, take a cable everywhere with you and always hardwire. Mountaineering experience, I think they're coming through from Tommy. Thank you very much. The dudes he met with, says Daisy, have been cleared apparently. Yeah, Daisy, I read that. Really cleared really quickly. I think there were two British guys that took him back to the apartment. Don't know how they cleared them so quickly, but it's entirely possible, or maybe that's the police covering their asses. Melinda, it's going to be not great if he's found missing and it's a hoax. I don't think it's a hoax. I kind of think that they realized there was some trouble going on. They were ill-equipped to deal with it. So I don't think this is a fake disappearance. I don't see very much in the words to say it's a fake disappearance. I see lots of storytelling, but I think that's lots of hiding what Jay was up to, which I think was no good. It's entirely possible that Jay was up to no good, but that his death was not as a result or a direct result of that no good. And I'm talking about his death, and he may not be dead. Let's hope. Kind of, if it is a hoax, that'd be quite nice because he'd still be alive and
guys, I'm so sorry.
Thank God, I was just at the end of everything I have to say about Jay Slater. I was getting very moral on it.
No, and I feel so bad because my internet is it's so bad wherever I go, and I'm so sorry. This is Wi-Fi is so bad. How does everybody do this? I'm sorry to interrupt without getting kicked off. I feel like I'm the only one that gets kicked off. You
just are in a different location every single day.
I know, but no matter what location I'm in, I literally always get kicked off. It's so crazy. All right, whatever. Let's end. Let me go back. Can you go back to how you ended with Jay Slater, just so I can catch up?
I just ended saying I think that the problem with Jay Slater is that I think he was up to some not very good things, and I think drugs were involved as well. And I think his family are trying to hide drugs and the trouble that he got into, and I think that is why they're giving off this deceptive whiff around the stories that they're telling about him and trying to convince us that he was a good guy and so on. But ultimately, I don't think the trouble he got into directly led to his disappearance, other than I think he was in some trouble, has done a bit of a runner, and in trying to run away has met some sort of grief accident or something like that. That would be my summation of what's there. I think I'm very conscious they think height plays a lot of importance in the words that they use when they talk about him. She's frozen again. Taryn, Lauren needs Starlink. I'm starting to agree. Anything else? Was it Jay's mom who said something about him not liking cold and dark places? I'm getting very confused. Taryn, that was Karen Matthews' mum who said cold and dark places when she was talking there. Helen, do you think the family know he is likely not coming back, but still cracking on with the fundraising for their own benefit? Potentially, Helen, although I did, when I looked at Jay's mom, she talks about him in the present tense. She doesn't ever talk about him in the past tense. So, hi, Lauren.
Hi.
I think she does say she has hope, and I do think the mom, certainly she hasn't spoken a lot recently, but certainly in the first week or so of being missing, she was using the present tense to refer to Jay. So I don't think she knows, has any insight that he is no longer with us.
He's right. He's right. Sal is right. Well, I'm actually gonna have to go back and listen to that, so I don't waste any more time here with me getting kicked off. I'm so sorry. I really need to figure out to hardwire this Wi-Fi here. But with 10 minutes left, Jack, I do want to make sure we get to Sebastian Rogers, because Sebastian, we have not thought about, or I don't want to say we haven't thought about Sebastian, but essentially Sebastian hasn't really touched the mainstream media since the photo was debunked, the photo in North Carolina at the Blue Ridge Mountains. I know that Seth Rogers was very excited, thought that could have been Sebastian. And then I'll be honest, I don't pay attention to anything when it comes to the parents doing YouTubes. I don't mess with that. I just want the facts here. It's way too confusing. But you know, Jack, that I had been on Nancy Grace with both sets of parents, the Proudfoots and Seth Rogers. And Seth Rogers took Nancy Grace's polygraph. And generally, you know, even Nancy had said this, like, you know, polygraphs don't always matter. You know, they're not always what they used to be. There's drugs that could be involved, and it just depends on the questioning. But she did have somebody from the FBI, very, very well renowned, questioned him. So I want to know what your analysis on Seth Rogers is. I know mine, just getting it out there. I don't think he had anything to do with his son's disappearance. But Seth is a bit harder to read than the Proudfoots, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I saw some stuff that Seth, by the way, can I just say, I did a video on Seth a couple of weeks ago, and a few folk got in touch to say thank you for bringing this Sebastian's story to light again. So I think this is exactly the right thing for us to be talking about, because it has dropped away. I saw a few things written about Seth that made him seem a bit dodgy, sending cease and desist letters to people saying, don't talk about me anymore. So I thought this is a great one to analyze. And I found, funnily enough, an interview that he did with Nancy Grace 3 weeks after Sebastian went missing. And I was all ready to find this guy that I'd already kind of taken against because of what I'd read, what he'd done.
Right.
No. This was one of the easiest bits of analysis I've done all year. He answered the exact question Nancy Grace asked him every time. She'd ask him a question. He had no idea what was coming. So sometimes you'd see him thinking, what she just asked me? Right, here's my answer to it. But there was no sense of prepared storytelling. Interestingly, compared to the Proudfoots, Nancy asked him about his autism, and he said he's very smart, he's very intelligent, he likes things a certain way. It was all stated positively. So here's the positives of his condition, and here's what I know Sebastian likes. Whereas the Proudfoots, they obviously had a really hard time. They were like, well, he gets stuck in a track and he just is a one-man mission to be a certain way. And it was like, oh, his autism annoys you. The way he is annoys you.
So sad.
But Seth, no, he was so consistent. He started his story at the same place all the time. He seemed to not trust, especially Katie Proudfoot. Is that her name? Katie Proudfoot?
Katie Proudfoot.
So when he was saying some things that he knew, he was saying, he was flagging up, I only know this because this is what Katie told me, i.e., I don't trust this. It's kind of like, Lauren, if you told me you have a white front door, and I believe you, I'll tell everyone you have a white front door, right? If you tell me you've got a white front door, and I don't believe you, I'll be like, well, Lauren says she's got a white front door. and that's very much like what he was doing, was very much, well, I've been told by Katie this is what happened, but I'm flagging up to you. I don't know for sure, and I have some doubts in it as well. Now, I know he's made some questionable choices since. I think he's done some strange things since, but I don't think he has any or at the time had any knowledge of what happened to Sebastian. I think he has suspicions that he's not been told the full story by the Proudfoots.
Yeah, and I think somebody just said this. It's not, I don't think it's necessarily about being biased in any way. I think it's about Seth as a person, and what Jack just explained is, yeah, he's made some questionable choices since Sebastian went missing. I don't want this to come off in any sort of way. I don't know, I guess, I don't want to say intelligence levels per se, but I just don't know if they know the appropriate way to act when something like this happens. Clearly, he's never had a child go missing before. And maybe somebody told him, yeah, it's good for you to go on all these YouTube channels and say all these different things and hire this person and hire that person. It's not normal, in my opinion. However, I never got anything suspect in my head to go off about Seth when it comes to Sebastian. Sure, maybe other stuff, but I don't really pay attention to that because Sebastian is what we should be focusing on.
Yeah, I think in this world, if the more than one thing can be true at the same time. So Seth could be a terrible person, frankly. He could have all sorts of issues in his life. He could be extremely motivated by money or fame or whatever it is. But also, he had nothing to do with the disappearance of Sebastian. You know, just because someone has all these things going on there doesn't mean they've got stuff going on there. And what I looked at to go to the point of bias was, how did he talk about Sebastian? How did he talk about Sebastian's disappearance? And it was extremely, it's not proof of anything, but it was extremely straightforward. It was extremely direct. You know, his answers were so short because he wasn't storytelling. He wasn't trying to persuade or convince us of anything around Sebastian going missing.
Right. And something that I did notice about Seth as well is that Seth, when he was doing these appearances, like when he came on Nancy, he looked like crap, right? He looked like he had not slept. He looked terrible. And something that you pointed out, I think it was Jay Slater's mom, and this can happen with parents of missing kids that you kind of feel are withholding information, is that they do make it about them. I wouldn't wish this upon any parent, what I'm going through. I'm so tired. I'm so this. I'm going through this. And I noticed that Seth has never really said that or anything that I've seen.
Yeah,
so
no, his prime concern was Sebastian.
Yeah. And that's how I feel. That's totally how I feel. And look, I'm not here to bash the Proudfoots in any way. I just, at this point, when a child goes missing without a trace and it's been X many months, I think that you really have to hone in on the parents. I do. I think there's no other way. And listen, maybe the police are honing in on them and they just aren't telling us anything because they don't owe us anything. So there's that. But yeah, it's tough. I just want to see. So does anybody have? Oh, actually, Sal wants to know. There you go. Okay.
So yes, there's the 8 words that liars use is a very quick guide to just hacking, understanding what people are saying. You would look at Alec Baldwin's Instagram post and go, interesting. There's also a book called Truthful Deception, which is a much more in-depth look at about 30 odd tactics that people will use to lie or to tell the truth, but to hide things within it as well. And they're on Amazon.
Amazon. Okay, and what's it called again? Say it one more time.
The 8 words that liars use, or there is Truthful Deception.
Then write that. The 8 words that liars use. Love that. Boom. Does anyone else have any questions right now for Jack? And it can be about anything that we talked about on this live. It can be. I'm still fascinated with the jury note. I'm like, I cannot wait to go over that. And did you say you had that written out anywhere that we could view the notes?
This was an exclusive to you. The 2 jury notes yesterday. I was in my sick bed watching Judge Canoni read them out and just going through them. I've got a group of people around me and we discuss some of the words and concepts that are there. So it's never all my own work. I always bounce things off some people just to see if I'm making good assumptions or bad assumptions, or if there's anything else that goes there. But yes, this was something I thought I'd do for this.
Well, I loved it. I like I said, there's so many words that you said that I'm probably going to have this transcribed so I can go through. No, really, and I'll give you all the credit in the world. Don't you worry.
But just remember, you passed the Instagram test.
I did. I passed, and I didn't even realize. I can't even believe that. Oh wait, hold on. So this is actually a good one. Have you deduced Alan Jackson? Well, so Tommy, what he kind of said before is he wasn't necessarily sure about some of Alan's tactics up there, right?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of believability, look, both of them in court are only asking questions, and it's much easier to deduce someone when they're answering questions because that tells you a hell of a lot more. Yeah, I've spoken before about their energy, but yeah, it's hard to do when someone's only answering questions. Alan Jackson's obviously a fast thinker and fast talker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's great on his feet. My goodness, great on his feet.
He's very humble as well. Very, I'm not sure whether he's humble, but his words are humble. The number of times he went, "I'm sorry, that was a terrible question. Let me ask that again," which is just disarms everyone. Oh, this guy's putting himself down. I didn't understand the question, and he's told me it was terrible. It wasn't my fault. I'm not thick. He got it.
You actually said something on our last live, Tommy. You'll find this interesting. You said Alan Jackson owns all of his mistakes, and that kind of goes back to him being humble. When the judge says something, he'll say, instead of saying sorry, he says, "I'm sorry."
I'm sorry. Yes.
Or you said he says, instead of saying "understood, judge," he says, "I understand. I'm sorry." So I think that's really really telling, taking ownership. But okay, so Jack, thank you so much. Remind everybody where to find you so they can find you and follow you.
Neveratruerword.com is the best place to go because then you got all the socials and the podcasts and video analysis that go even deeper into someone's words than we've covered a lot in an hour.
We really did. And I can't wait because we are so going to do this next week. Don't worry, you guys, I'm going to find a new case with some new words and some new statements. And I'm going to keep Jack really, really busy. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to work so hard to not get kicked off next time, but at least Jack can handle it when I do. So
partly so.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
Bye.